Samuel Cooper, Fisher Cooper. My date of birth is June the 18th, 1943. I was born in McKinney, Texas, and uh, my mother and daddy had always lived there, and his parents had always lived there. And when I was young, we lived way out of town, and I had to ride the school bus, go to school. And my mother and daddy worked hard, and they didn't have very much money. We didn't have much. We didn't move into a house that had a bathroom till I was a teenager and in high school.
Where did you go to the bathroom?
Outhouse. We didn't have a bathroom. We had to take baths in a great big old round tin tub that was made for taking baths in. Heater water. All our water came from the well, and we had to pump it out of the well and carry it in a bucket. My mother and daddy was very lovable family. They really loved their family. I had 5 brothers and sisters. I was the youngest girl and next to the oldest of all the kids. And one thing that I was embarrassed about, when I'd spend the night with my grandma Fisher, she'd pack me a lunch in a tin bucket with a little bell on it. And I was ashamed to eat out of that at school, so I would hide it at school and then dump it out before I got home, so she thought I ate it. But I would never eat that at school because I was embarrassed. It seemed like it was always a long way to catch the bus where we lived, and but we had a good time. We all did stuff together, and then my brothers and sisters started getting married and having kids, and family grew. And when I was a kid, I guess before high school, smaller, uh, me and my younger brother was home. His name's Don. My older brother was Ed, and my older sisters was Bobby and Patsy and Shirley. And we didn't have phones. We didn't have telephones. We sure didn't have an iPhone. And we played. We'd go outside and we just played games outside, all kinds of outside games. We had good times. We visited our cousins and played and everything. We never had a TV at my house until I finished high school and X-ray school and bought my mom and dad a TV all through school, and I never had a TV. The only phone we had was a party line, and there was about 5 families on a party line, and you had different rings. Like rings twice is for you. If it rings 3 times, it's somebody else on the party line, and you could pick up and listen in to the party line conversation. It was all on one line. But anyway, we had a lot of good times, but we didn't have any iPhones, any electronics, or nothing. We spent a lot of time with our cousins and stuff, playing and visiting and eating. I don't remember ever, even when I was in high school. Well, when I was in high school, we'd go to a couple places like kind of like the Sonic drive-in thing, and everybody could hang out. But I don't remember ever going to a restaurant to eat with my mom and daddy when I was growing up. Never. But they didn't have much. They didn't have many restaurants back then either, and stuff. There was no McDonald's or Taco Bell's or anything, even fast food stuff like that. We eat a meal, sit down and have a good meal, and we might just have beans and fried potatoes. Sometimes we had meat, sometimes we didn't, but we always had groceries. And I didn't know any different. I didn't know, that my family was poor. I didn't feel like it. I had clothes and food on the table and everything else. When I was in high school, I had to study hard to make my grades, and I didn't make all good grades all the time. But we didn't have a TV, like I said, and this one coach that was a teacher gave us a test every Tuesday, every Wednesday morning after Tuesday night, because Marshall Dillon and another Western came on Tuesday night. So he gave us a test on what happened in that show, which I had never seen. And so I just answered and just made up stuff. Sometime I passed him and sometime I didn't, because I didn't know anything about him, because I don't know anything about the TV. So I never did anything wrong. And one time I thought I need to do something, because everybody else skipped school and everything else. So I skipped school. So I rode the bus to school. That's the only way I had to get to school. And I hid out in the bathroom all day. And when school was out, I went out and got on the bus, and it wasn't a very exciting day. Anyway, I went to church. I never did. I tried smoking one time because somebody offered me one, and it was nasty. So I never even tried it again or ever. I went to church with a bunch of teenagers my age, and none of them smoked, so it was easy for me not to get pulled into that. When I was in school, high school, I didn't have to take PE. I didn't ever go out for any sports or anything. I didn't care about that, and I didn't have to take PE because I rode the bus. I never did understand that, but uh, I never did have to take PE and get the credits for it or anything, because I rode the bus. I don't know what that was, but after I graduated, my mother worked for Dr. Mitchell in McKinney had for years, and he told me that he would send me to nursing school and pay for it if I wanted to go. So there was a guy there that worked in the lab in X-ray. He did both, and he told me I should maybe try. I might like X-ray, and they would pay for everything. And so they did. I never had a car in school. I never had a car the whole time I went to X-ray school. I had to always borrow my brother or my brother-in-law's. And one time I had a wreck in his station wagon, my brother's station wagon. And when we exited off on the service road to go up the street to Baylor Hospital, where I went to X-ray school, my brakes didn't work, and I hit two cars from behind and knocked them into each other and toward his car. But while we were sitting there, I bet you every doctor at that hospital came by and saw that I had a wreck and wanted to know if we needed any help. Very embarrassing. So I never worked while I was in school. I went straight into X-ray school when I graduated, because I had help, and like I said, had to borrow cars and stuff. But I always liked it. I never did regret being an X-ray tech. I always liked it. And I worked 30 years at the same job, and before I changed the job, so that's a good work record. I was out of school, I guess, when I met Danny, and he lived in Wiley, and my sister Shirley lived in Wiley, and she said there was a guy down there worked in the grocery store, Northside, in Wiley used to be open front, and so he worked there. And my sister said she'd drive by there. I said, drive me by there after church and let me see what he looks like. I'll tell you if I want to date him or not. And I was going steady with this guy, and I walked by there. We drove by there, and you could see him from sitting in the car. And so I said, yeah, I want to meet him. So she had me come after Wednesday night after church and meet him at her house. And we all went driving. Her, my sister, and her husband, and 3 or 4 kids, they rode with us. We were riding around. So then a week later, my girlfriend said, I met this guy, and he said he's picking you up for a date Friday night. And she said it was Danny that I just met. And I said, I'm not going out with him. going with him if he don't call me and ask me for a date. But Friday night I was ready when he came. So we dated. I broke up with the other guy and started dating him right off, and we dated 2 months. Uh, we met in March, and in June, on my birthday, he gave me an engagement ring, and then we got married the following March. We was married 58 years, and it was a long time. I'm thinking when I was 18 when we got married. He was the same age. I was from June to November older than him. And then we never left Wiley. Danny's lived here all his life. We never left here, and I didn't go far. Danny went to work eventually for American Airlines. He worked 25 years for American Airlines. Worked in stores department where they keep all the parts from the motors and the tires and everything that went on the dishes and everything that went on the airplane. They stocked it and stored it, and sometimes he'd have to take a part for that went on the airplane over there to where the airplanes was so they could work on a plane and stuff. But he liked that. He always liked that job. Danny was Dan Rex Cooper, and Danny's mother and daddy was Everett Cooper and Pauline Behrens Cooper, and they lived in a little house uptown. They had Billie Jean, was their oldest daughter, and then Jerry Cooper. He lived in Wiley and around Wiley. And Sharon Danny was the middle child, and then Sharon, and then Kent. Kent was real young when we got married. And him and Kent and his family. And, Jerry and Sharon is the only ones left at this time of his family. And I only have my younger brother Don left in my family. But we got lots of other kin folks and stuff. We have a big family. Danny and his daddy, Everett, his mother, Pauline, had a brother named Jerry, and Hi Daddy is what he called it. We called his daddy, and Jerry and Danny went hunting a lot. So I never had even seen a live deer when I got married. And so they took me, all three of those guys and me went hunting for the first time I ever went hunting. And they took me out and put me in a tree, let me get up in a tree in the dark. And I just had a board up there with a quilt laying on it for me to get up there in the tree. And the quilt was bright yellow and red that they set me on, not camouflage, nothing. And so they went off and left me and said they'd come back. They left me there for all day till after dark. I was scared and worried, and they said if a deer walked out, shoot it. I had practiced before. I could shoot a BB gun and a 22 because I practiced it a lot, just shooting. I don't know why, because I had never been hunting. But so when he came back to pick me up, I said, "There's a deer laying over there." He said, "No, it's not." And I said, "Oh, yes, it is." I said, I shot him and he fell down and he started trying to get up. And I shot him again and he didn't move. So the first time I blowed his leg off, and then the second time I shot him in the heart so he didn't go anywhere. I was afraid he was going to run off. So we carried that. Back then, we didn't have all the kind of stuff we have now. We carried the deer home on the hood of the car so everybody could see. We had a buck on the hood. And but I was the only one who brought a deer home, and they really given them a hard time that I went hunting with 3 men and they all came home empty-handed. And Danny, at that time, Danny had never killed a buck. He had only killed does. He had never killed a buck. So I was ahead up on him on that one. We both always went to church. Every Sunday, one of our favorite things, not just me and Danny, or Danny and me, is My whole family, my brothers and sisters, their kids, all of their kids, our kid, my kids, all the way down to their grandkids and great grandkids and my grandkids and great grandkids. We all been going to Lake Texoma ever since I was 6 years old, and I'm 79. And uh, we started going there. There was just a sand road out there, and we go up there. We didn't have a refrigerator. Some stuff that we need to keep cool, we'd bury it in the wet sand down close to the water. You have to keep it cool. We had ice chests, but we didn't. When I started dating Danny, the first summer after we started dating, he went to the lake, stayed at the lake with us on vacation. All of us, everybody, and my family to this day still look forward to going to the Lake Texoma camping and being together as a family. Um, and now it's upgraded so that they finally got water in there and finally got electricity in there, and then they had built a park bigger and had electricity and water. And so at first we just had tarps and cod slade right out into weather, and then they made it bigger, and we got tents, used all in them tents for a while, and then we got small pop-up campers and stuff, and then eventually we moved down to the area it is now, which is a lot bigger park where we have electricity and water, and we all have campers and stuff. It was just there, just in into June and July, and we had a fish fry while we was up there, and there was 65 people there that ate at the fish fry. That's how many people we had there at one time. We count there was 65 people, and then 117 people came and visited. During the time we was there, we had 117 visitors, and 65 was at the fish fry. And then we had our kids, Janice, Greg, and Brad, and that turned into lots of grandkids and lots of great grandkids. The oldest one was Janice, and she had Shay and Kaylee and Colton. Greg had Rindy and Ty, and Brad had Wyatt and Ren. Janice always liked school. She did good in school. And Janice was really a picky eater. When we got married, Danny wouldn't eat any kind of Italian food, any kind of Mexican food, not a taco, not any kind of pizza. He just meat and potato guy. Well, Janice was kind of particular. But when she got in high school, I said, Janice, if you don't learn to like pizza, you're not going to be invited to a lot of parties. Because that's what they do. They party and eat pizza. So she ate just hamburger pizza. That's all she'd eat, hamburger pizza. And for hamburger, if she ate a hamburger, she wanted meat and bread only with ketchup on it. Greg, he hated school. He always thought, being the middle kid, he was mistreated because he got everything taken away from him. I mean, I tried everything to get him to bring up his grades. He would not. He failed PE because he wouldn't dress out, and he hated school. I said, "Why didn't you turn in that paper I helped you with today? Why didn't you turn it in instead of getting it?" He said, "I just didn't want to." And I forgot. He said, "I go to school all day. When I come home, I want to play. I'm not going to do lessons and study when I come home." So it was always a fight with him. Brad came right along. He hated school. He didn't like school. He didn't want to go to school either. But before I had Brad, Greg was up. I waited till Greg was like 5 before I wanted to have another child. And I said, if I knew it was going to be a boy, I wouldn't have any more children. But I went ahead and chanced it, and it was a boy. So, them boys hated school. I was between Janice and something else, and I chose Janice. I don't remember what the debate was over. Greg Uh, I named him Greg. Well, uh, I wanted to name him Dan after Danny. So his name was Dan. Dan's was Dan R. Greg's was Dan Gregory Cook. So when Brad came along, Greg felt like he needed to name him. So I said, okay, what do you want to name him? He said, Daniel Boone or John Wayne. And I said, well, I'll compromise. I'll let you pick one and I'll pick one. So we'll go with Wayne. I want to name him Brad. We'll name him Bradley Wayne after John Wayne. So that's why his name's John. Is after John Wayne. Greg named him. I have everything I need. Even now, I've lost Danny, but I have a home and food and can pay the bills and able to buy anything I want, I guess. So I feel I'm safe and I'm happy and blessed. No, but I'm happy I'm going on a cruise pretty soon because I do like to go on cruises. Officer and a Gentleman. The River by Garth Brooks is my favorite song. Richard Gere, and always said he could eat crackers in my bed anytime. Big role model in my life was Amy Swanner. She was a lady that lived with us for 5 or 6 years when Greg was little. She kept Janice and Greg, and she lived with us, and she just took care of my kids. She didn't clean or cook or anything. She just was to keep reading books for hours and just took care of the kids. And she was a very devout Christian, very Christian woman, and she never ever learned how to drive. She had to always depend on somebody to take her to get groceries and stuff. She lived alone, but she wanted to live to be 100 years old, and she lived to be 100 years old and have her birthday, but it was in a nursing home. But she died shortly after that. A pet peeve to me is if any of my grandkids gets a ball out of that net thing at Walmart and starts bouncing it in there, it makes me so mad that they take that ball and start bouncing in the store. It's embarrassing, and I hate them to do that. I pretty well stopped every one of them from ever doing it too. And my great grandkids and all my other grandkids and kids, it keeps me happy. I don't know. The only thing I've talked about lately that is going to cost some money is going on an Alaskan cruise. I've always wanted to go on an Alaskan cruise. I'd like to do that. I never went to church in my life till I was 13. I didn't know what a church was or anything about it. And my mother took me to church when I was 13, and I've been going to church continuously without breaking down, without stopping anywhere. Even when I got married, Danny was already going to church, and his mom and stuff. And I've always gone, since I was 13 years old, I've always gone to church. I was a Baptist, been a Baptist all my life. And right now, and with my age and health and everything, I feel closer to God right now than I ever have. I have mixed emotions about death. I always have. I've talked to different preachers several times, but my thing is, they always say you'll see him again in heaven, but I don't think that I will see my mother and daddy as my mother and daddy. And if there's a baby born here, if we have a baby born and that baby dies, if they're the same age when we get to heaven as they was then, we might know them. But are we going to all? My question is, are we going to all be the same age in heaven? Are we going to all be the age we are when we died? I don't know. It says that there'll be no tears in heaven. So if you get to heaven and somebody's not there that you expect to be there, there would be tears in heaven. So I have mixed emotions about that. And I read a scripture just the other day in the Bible, and it said this woman had married a man. He had 10. There was 10 brothers, and and she died without giving childbirth to carry his name on. So back then they had to marry their brother to keep his name going, and she married each one of them, and they died before she had a child by them. So at the end they said, Jesus, who will be her husband in heaven? And he said, there will be no husbands and wives in heaven. They will be like the angels. I guess. So I think some way we're going to recognize each other, but we won't know them as my father and my mother or my kids. I do not fear death. I'm ready to meet the Lord when it's time. Meaning, well, there's been some things that's I think it was a miracle when God saved Danny the first time, when he had a stroke and went to the hospital, and when they took a picture of his head and neck when they thought he was having a stroke, they found a tumor. It was cancer, and they was able to take that cancer out, but they had to take his whole lung out. And he was in ICU. They had to break a rib and take the lung out, and then after that, he was free of cancer. I mean, it was unbelievable to him himself that last week he had cancer, and this week he don't have cancer. And he knew that was a miracle from God, that he lived through that and was also free of cancer again. And then when he got COVID the first time, he had pneumonia and COVID with one lung and diabetes. So he lived through that to come home. And I think, again, God was with him. God was taking care of him. And recently, Greg got hit by a train, and he got the truck across the train track, but not the trailer that was hit. But it was jerked off of the truck. It was a fifth wheel. It was jerked off of the truck, and his truck never even moved. He was still sitting in it. And the train man said that never, ever has anybody been hit like that it didn't drag the whole truck and the trailer underneath the train and grind it up. But he was sitting on the other side, sitting in his truck. He saw it all happen, and he never even moved his truck. I think that's a miracle. And there's been many other times too, but I think that we wouldn't have been here. We wouldn't have made it without God's help. So. Well, I've met a lot of people in my life.
Got a few shout outs you want to give? Shout out to you and you and you. I love you.
One of my granddaughters, I'd shout out for Cassie Cooper, because she's always told me she loved me. She stays in contact and visits me and takes care of me, and I know she loves me.
Are you just buttering me up? Because I'm right here. Are you buttering me up? Man,
no.
Oh, I need to hug you first.
I don't know. I love you too. I don't think I've ever hated anybody. I love everybody. I think God put me here to be a helper, to help take care of sick people, and help them if they need something. I haven't always, I've usually been able to take care of them if they're sick or something. All of them, lots of times, but I never have had money to spend and give them a lot of money if they needed money and stuff, but I try to help them if I could. But and I think that was my purpose here. When I was 17, I was led to be a missionary. And so I think that my mission in life then for that was not to go other countries or anything, because the going to X-ray school and having it all paid for and everything, that was just given to me, put in my lap. And I worked in X-ray, and I worked with people that was sick and hurt and cancer, and talked to people, and I think it gave me an opportunity to say God's name in front of them. You know, back then you didn't. It wasn't a bad thing to tell people, talk to people about God. When I worked in all those years, I worked in the hospital and being around sick people and stuff. I love everybody. I do have a temper. I do get mad, and not nowadays. I don't have very much patience, but uh, I I feel like I've always been a good person. I try to help everybody. My most famous name is Mamaw. I'm Mamaw to everybody. Even some of the adults call me Mamaw. Mamaw to everybody. I guess I'll always be a Mamaw. I'd like to be remembered as a good, loving person that cared for everybody.
And had the most beanie babies on the planet.
I probably had the most beanie babies of anybody.
Just the world, even there's after you're gone.
There's no use making many plans, because I don't know how long I'm going to be left in this world. So.
Well, what about all of us? Do you want to pray something onto the future for your grandkids and great-grandkids?
I just pray they all meet God and know God and come to heaven with me. I just hope they have a happy life and come see me someday.
Can you give us a smile at the end of the video?